What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Dr. Ricky McCray. I want to talk specifically to those who want to become authors or even an entrepreneur, or you have some venture that you're getting ready to start, some new season. So I want to really just share some things that from my experience that helped me. So especially when it starts with authors or anything like that, what I have learned is you have to be focused on the commitment instead of the time. If you don't get anything else from what I'm getting ready to say today, I want you to get this. You have to focus on the commitment of doing or completing or finishing the thing that you started, instead of focusing on how much time it will take to do it. You say, well, why is that? Because when I focus on the commitment, I focus on the work, and I recognize the work. There's always a process in the work, right? And so everything is about learning and growing and developing, getting better, being more comfortable, more confident in it, right? But the time, whenever we think of time, we always think of loss. We always think of what we may lose. We always think about what we don't have. We always think about what we're not able to do if we have to spend time over here doing this thing. And so we always think about what's taken away. It is always a loss. It is always a subtraction whenever we think of time. But when we're focused on the commitment, it is always an addition, or most of the time a multiplication problem. So I want to help us to first understand that. Don't worry about how much time it's going to take. Don't worry about the sacrifice of time that it's going to take to do this. Focus on the commitment and you will complete it. And not only will you complete whatever it is you start, but also you'll become whatever it is you are to become because you went through the process. So I want to share something, especially authors, something that I did when I decided to write both of my books. And I've got three books I'm working on right now as we speak, and an Audible. And what I have discovered is I am writing all the time, right? So I have two set times, right, that I'm writing. I have a morning. I am a morning person. So I wake up, when I did the second book, Some Things Are Worth Fighting For, I woke up probably 5 days a week at 4 a.m. to write for my first 2 to 2.5 hours of the day. Now, you may not be a morning person, right? And that's cool. That's cool. You might be a night owl. Some of you are night owls, so you can stay up to 2, 3 in the morning. So if you need to start your writing time at midnight or 11 and you need to write for those 2 hours while you're still up, hey, cool. Do what works for you. I'm a morning person, but it does require, I don't care who you are or what you are, morning or a night person or afternoon person, I don't care what you are, at the end of the day, it's going to take discipline. Come on, repeat after me, say discipline, right? It is going to take me making the sacrifice to set a regular scheduled time for you to write. Now, even if you're an entrepreneur or you have some new venture you're getting ready to do in this season, it still requires you to have discipline and set aside time to spend on that new venture. So even when I started the church in 2012, I would spend my first hour in prayer of the day. I would spend 2 hours in the middle of the day just planning, writing down ideas, making sure I was reading books and writing down notes. So I would spend 2 hours and I would spend my last hour of the day praying. I believe that discipline, man, is one of the greatest keys to complete anything. There are a lot of people who talk about, oh, I'm going to write a book, or I've heard, oh, the Lord laid on my heart to write a book, and that's great. Oh, I should write a book about this, or I should start a business for that, or I should start this, or I should start that. The reality is y'all, the difference between those who have great ideas and those who are successful is a word called execution. It is a word called execution. Can you execute? Can you complete it? Can you actually come up with a plan, stay with your plan, complete it? That is the difference. You take away your opportunity to succeed in something if you won't first just complete it, if you won't stay committed to doing the work. And I believe this, especially if it's something that you're going to sell, a product or anything like that. How can somebody else buy your product or believe in your product when you won't believe in it enough to set aside the time and the discipline to do it? So you got to set aside that time. It's going to be a sacrifice. It's not going to be easy, right? Because your life is set up in such a way that you're comfortable doing whatever routine you have. But I promise you, if you make that sacrifice, take, somebody repeat after me, say take the time. It will not just appear on its own. I was talking to someone recently and they were like, when I get time, I said, get time? Where they sell that at? Like, is this like something you can get at a store? What do you mean you get time? No, you've been given 24 hours. At the end of the day, you have to take time out of the time that has already been given to do what it is you feel that's on your heart to do. And here's the piece. This is why it takes this self-discipline, because nobody's going to stand over you and say, like you're at your job and saying, hey, you didn't clock in today, or you didn't do this today. It takes that self-discipline. And can I share this with you? It's not just self-discipline. It is understanding why you're doing it, right? Understanding why it is that this thing is on your heart and you have to get it out. Because that's the thing should motivate you in the middle of the night when you're trying to write, or you try to get up in the morning, you're like, oh, I am so tired, or oh, I went to bed late, and you can make all kind of excuses. Oh, I can't get up. Oh, I won't do it. When you have a end goal in mind, when you understand the purpose of why you're doing it, that purpose is what gets you up in the morning. That purpose is what keeps you up. That purpose is what keeps you writing. That purpose is what keeps you staying disciplined to the time that you set aside to do whatever it is you're getting ready to do. So you have that, right? You have the discipline, your time you set aside, you take it out. And then the second, I told you I had two really appointed times. The second appointed time is whenever I get inspired. So that could be during the day at any time. I always got my phone ready. Right? I got Word documents on my phone. If you can do whatever app you have, and I literally, whatever ideas come to me, I'm just and I'm writing them down, because you will forget them. If you like me, I've forgotten all kind of great ideas that I had. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, I'm going to remember to write that down later. And then I was like, what was I thinking? What came to me? Does that happen to anybody? So I'm not the only one. If you know that, prepare. You have to get into the routine that when you get inspired and you have ideas or something comes to you about the book, stop what you're doing and write it down, okay? And don't get caught up on trying to write it perfectly. I don't know if this is your hang up or just mine, but sometimes I'm going to make sure my punctuation is right and did I spell the word right? And the reality is that don't matter. I'm just jotting down my idea so that I can later go back and expound upon it. And so for you, I don't know if this is for maybe you old school. I got some old schools who are watching, and maybe you need to write it in a notebook. Hey, whatever it takes, get the idea down. Whenever you're inspired, stop, because I promise you, you won't be able to remember it much later. And so I want you to do that. So I have 2 pointed times. These are my tips today. I want to recap. My tips are this: stay focused on the commitment and not the time that it takes, right? I want to make sure you get that. Secondly, discipline, right? Remember, the difference between those who just have ideas and those who are successful is execution. You got to get that execution, right? And then I want you to also to remember, whenever you get inspired, write it down. I'll start sharing a little bit later about formatting and things like that. But for right now, you're in the beginning of this thing. You're inspired. Begin to set aside that time daily. so that you can write down ideas, write down whatever it is that's in your book, whatever new venture you're starting. I promise you, y'all, and this is a process. This don't happen overnight. I know people who have written books in a month. There's some people who've written books in a few days. And then there are people who have taken years to write, right? It really just depends on the actual project, the work that you're doing. For me, for my first book, probably took me about 3 days to do, right? It was a children's book, smaller book. The story I created in my head, it took me about 3 days to do that. I will share with you the second book. That was about a year process to really get it right. So again, don't worry about don't focus on the time it's going to take. Focus on the commitment. I grew so much in both of the processes, but that second process where it was a year, there was so much more developed in me as a person. I had so much more confidence now as a writer that I can share with you. So I'll keep talking to you about that, and we'll share more about how do you get stuff from your head and your heart to your hands, right? From your head and your heart to your hands, where it's visible. It is something tangible that people can touch. So thank you so much for being with me today. I'll continue to share more about how do you get started. And let me also just finish with this before I leave. I want you to be in prayer. I want you to be in prayer about whatever it is that you're supposed to do. And I want you to be praying for the courage and the strength and the discipline that it requires. But I also want you to pray for an accountability partner. That is somebody who you'll check in with, and you've told them that you started this, and you've told them that you're going to complete this, right? You set some kind of fluid date that you say, I want to have this much done by this time, right? That gives you something to work toward. Now, remember, I said fluid because sometimes you may need to push it back, but tell that person so that they can keep checking in with you to help you stay on top of things. So I believe in you. I know you can do it. All it requires is you being disciplined, you staying focused. Find your reason for doing it, your purpose for doing this today. So grateful for you. I'm praying for all of you entrepreneurs, all of you authors out there, for all of you who are starting something new in a new season. And I am praying that God will keep his promise, and that everything that you are praying for, those desires you have, that God's going to bring those dreams and visions to fruition. They will come to pass. Thank you so much for being with me. God bless you.